Welcome to part two of this, the making of the environment diorama for the 40k tank. Just an overview as it was in the first part of sort of me process here that I'm going to use. So in this part I'm going to create this the main platform here, poured concrete platform. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to model the base mesh in Z modeler. I was going to do it in Max using splines as I mentioned in the first part, but I don't even have to now. I'm trying to get into the habit of doing as much as I can now in ZBrush. As long as it's quicker, like there's no point in, or even the same speed, there's no point in slowing myself down if I can do it quicker in Max. So it'd be just as easy to do it over in ZBrush now that I've set up my scale and everything and have my paving slabs over there, so I can just work to them. And yeah, so I'll build this out basic geometry, and then I'll dynamesh it. So as I say, we're going to create this concrete. So the way I'm going to go about that is I'm using this a brilliant free plugin from Aaron Dablo. I think the bloke's name is. Let me see, info about. Yeah, Aaron Dablo. His website is. You can get it on debrismaker.aarondablo.com. Just pause the video and have a look there. But it's a really great little plugin here. You can see it has all these presets, and in this case, I just created a default preset, gravel count to 10, and he's doing all this trickery in the background here. So if I select one of these, this doesn't have any modifiers, but some of these, they come in with modifiers on them, so you can see how what the plugin's doing in the background. So we just select all of them, and then right click up here in the transform type in, and just right click to zero all these out, zero the pivots out to the center of the world 000, and that's just an important step to do before we send it over to ZBrush, so they're all in the right position. And when we create the insert multi-mesh, so then just Gozy editing ZBrush with all them selected, and they'll just append here as subtools of the currently active tool, because I have in preferences, Gozy preferences, I have import a subtool activated. So it's just going through the steps here and creating all them. So once they're all created, you can see here that they're in max scale there, so they're pretty huge, and it's what I showed in the first video about the scale between Max and ZBrush, but it's not really going to matter too much here. It will matter if I was using nano mesh. The scale would cause problems. So the quick thing to do there is just to come down to subtool. I'm already in subtool. Sorry, just come down to deformation, up to unify, and then just press N. So we'll just start with gravel 2, unify, gravel 3, unify, 4, unify, and so on and so on. Right, with all of these unified, the next thing you want to do is make sure you have your canvas aligned to whatever way you want these to be drawn onto the surface normal of whatever tool you're inserting them into. So that's quite important as well. So you can just look down on top down and turn off perspective and just shift the snap, and we can just come into the brush and down to create, insert multi-mesh. Now just one other important thing here, well, it depends how fussy you are, and subtool and whichever tool. So say for instance I want this one to be the icon of the brush, just I can shift select that to bring it to the bottom, send it to the bottom of the list, and whatever tools at the bottom of the list will be what's going to be displayed in your little icon here. Or else you can create I'll just open up the brush palette, or the brush palettes here. You can also just create a custom icon, make a 350 square PSD file in Photoshop, put that you like in there, and save that as an icon, and then select icon when you have the brush created. So ready to create the brush now. So you can do it from here, create insert multi-mesh, or you can do it from up here. So create insert multi-mesh. Sorry, that's wrong. I'll just say new, because I just created an insert mesh, which was wrong. press M. It's not a multi-mesh, so I'll just do that again. And now it's an insert multi-mesh. Press M, and here's all the different pieces of gravel. So at the moment, every time you drag out, whichever one is selected is always going to drag out, which is no good. So what you want to do here to randomize that is just come down to modifiers, and these two settings here, this setting here, variations, we have 10 pieces of gravel, so we want to set that to 10 to maximize the variation. And this multi-mesh selector, if it's set to 0, it'll just draw the currently selected one. If it's set to 1, it'll cycle, I think, backwards. 2 is cycle, or 2, either 2, 1 and 2 is cycle forwards and cycle backwards. I can't remember which is which. And then 3 is random, so I'm just going to set it to either random or one of the cycles. So with those things set up, we can now save out the brush. And at this stage, if you wanted to, you could have subdivided these to give them more resolution, but I'm just going to leave them like this, kind of faceted, so it won't really matter for instance. I'll just solder that out, turn off the floor, and we could subdivide them. In fact, I probably will subdivide them. I'm just going to come through them really quickly and subdivide them. So Control D, and you can just use your arrow keys to cycle down through the subtool list. And that one's already subdivided, and I think we have, did I get the top view? No. So Control D, 5 fingers, and that's it there. I don't know what's going on with that one, it's so weird. I don't know what's wrong with that one. It could have been bad geometry, so I'll just delete. Let's see if I can close holes, and that seems to have done the trick, and subdivide it. So yeah, they are all okay, but it just depends on, you know, whether you rather them like this or faceted the way they were. This one seems to be a bit dodgy as well, so I'll just delete lower and close holes. Maybe give it a touch of smooth. Yeah, it's not too bad. It might be just errors, tiny errors that, you know, in the viewport even. Mightn't actually be geometrical kind of errors, but not to worry. That's all done. Insert mesh is created, and now with these variations at 10 and our multi-mesh selector at 3, which is randomize, I'm just going to save out the brush. So brush is saved out. Gravel IMM, as I said, you can create and use custom icon there if you want. I'm not going to do that here. So the next thing to do now is to create our it's always a good idea just to test out your brush when you make it, or even as you're making it. So I'll just make Polymesh 3D, and our Gravel IMM still selected. Now we can drag out, and if we turn off solo, it won't disappear like that. And I created it before I subdivided, so that's why I would have to create it again after subdividing. So I'm going to actually leave it because I think I prefer it like this, not subdivided. So you can see now it's randomly every time choosing a different piece of gravel. So that's enough messing about. And next we will create the depth grab dock depth map, or height map. So I'll just grab a plane 3D, make Polymesh 3D, and just turn off smooth, and just divide it a couple of times, turn smooth back on. Well, it doesn't really matter, you can leave it off. And we just divide that up to say 4 million. And up to document, and we just want to change our document size to, in this case, you can change it to a point 1k or 1k, 512, 512 square map, or 1k or 2k or whatever size you want, just so that we have a square alpha. So I'm going to make it a 1k and resize document and just yes, and just clear the canvas, and I'm just going to zoom out and draw our plane out again. Press T, shift to lock, to snap it, and then just F to frame it up into our canvas. And now you know, we can use our insert multi-mesh, but first I'm just gonna, just to give an extra bit of variation in the depth, I'm gonna just grab clay build-up and just set that to Z sub. I'm just gonna sculpt in some nothing fancy. I'm just gonna give it some extra variation in the depth, just so when we create our map. And for creating this map, it's based on the geometry's position from the camera. So the closer it is, the whiter it's going to be on the map. So it's just like a normal displacement map. So this is going to displace in, and then our gravel is going to obviously displace out. So this doesn't have to be anything, as I said, too fancy. And now I'll just give that a bit of smooth. Trim dynamic. And give it a quick wash there. Trim dynamic, as I say, it's just to give a bit of variation in the depth. And now I'll go back to our gravel IMM brush and just start. I'll just start dragging that out. Sorry, you want to make sure to delete subdivisions first to use the insert mesh. And now we can just start dragging out our gravel. So just vary the size. And I'm just gonna kind of leave some gaps and pile some down on top of each other. So I suppose we're trying to mimic poured concrete as it would have set, as the gravel would have set in among the sand and cement. And you can just maybe layer these on top of each other then, just to give it an extra bit of information there for the height. Keep that one there, and just and I'm just, you keep it, you know, all kind of in and around the center of the document, because we're going to be using radial fade to blur out these harsh edges anyway on the map. So it's entirely sort of up to you what sort of kind of design you put in here or whatever, but just to be wary of, you know, create a couple of them, experiment and see how they're gonna come out, and you get an idea then of what you're looking for on the map. So well, you know, I've probably come down way too deep with all this, so I'm not really happy with this here. And you can see there we have a nice bit of variation, because these are piled up on top of each other, so that'll give us the extra information we need on the height map. So no big deal, I can just test this out by coming down to the alpha, fly out here and just grab dock, and now you can see there's our alpha. So if I switch over to another plane 3D, make that polymesh, and just divide that up a couple of times. I'm still on the insert multi-mesh, so what I want to do is go to maybe the displace brush, which is not there. Right, so B, D, just choose the displace brush and put the alpha that we just created, and these are both the same, so, and change that to drag rectangle, and that's what we get there, defaulted. So that's obviously not good. So what you want to do also is come into alpha, modify, and radial fade. Let me just bang that up a bit. You can also play with the mid value here, so I'm going to change that to bring that up to say 50. Sometimes you have to play around with that, but I'll just have a look here. I'm just going to divide that once more, and maybe I'll leave this intensity. So you get the idea here, what the brush is doing. So as I say, I'm just going to use this as a, I'm just going to use this kind of as a basis, kind of a layer, like a wash over the entire thing, and then I'll come in and sculpt it by hand then. So this is more or less, it's just to get me going, you know. It's, I suppose it's like using surface noise, where you're just getting an overall kind of a general effect on it, and then you're always going to come in and sculpt by hand, you know. So yeah, that's it then, I suppose, for this part. Just quickly to show you how you can set up a brush like this and a depth map. So I'm just starting here with a quick cube and deleting the back faces. I'm just using the move brush to in Z-Modeler, just to space it out, get a rough shape in, and add in a couple of edge loops just to give us more resolution to further adjust the shape. I'm just dragging around with the snake hook. Obviously this is more organic, you know, not like the other hard surface stuff, so it doesn't really have to be accurate in the same sense. So just tweaking and adding in some more edge loops wherever I need them, and then just tweaking as soon as I add them in. And as I've mentioned before, you know, only ever really adding in more topology when you need it. There's no point just adding it in willy-nilly all over the place. It's best to just work out what you have as long as you can, and then add it in when you need it. So I think, as I said in the first part, this is all, you know, it's loosely based on that concept. It's a concept, so I'm not trying to follow it exactly to the T, you know. I only have that one picture of it, so, you know, you just interpret it as you can and do whatever you like then. You know, it's not set in stone. You can do whatever the hell you like, redesign it or whatever you want. So I'm just messing about here. Just going to put in the Q mesh down for where that little kind of scummy pond is, where the sewage water comes out. So I've just Q meshed up the thickness, and I'm kind of just deciding as I go what I want to do. So I'll just tag those faces because there's kind of two levels in the concrete. And there wasn't much of a plan here, as you can see. I'm just kind of doing it as I go, seeing what works. Probably should have planned it out a bit more, but it wasn't a hugely complicated piece or anything, so it's not a big thing, you know. Kind of just design it as you go. And the thing about starting the base mesh here with Z-Modeler, you know, I could have just did this with Shadow Box or the box of Dynamesh, but anything, extract, mask extract it, plenty of ways to start it, you know. But starting with Z-Modeler here, we can get the main forms in pretty quickly at a low resolution. As you can see here, like dragging things around, then it's all in place. When we do Dynamesh it or Z-Remesh it, then it's all in place then, and you don't really have as much to do then, because your main primary forms are all laid in, and it's really easy to adjust. ZModeler here, it's such a low resolution, you can change the shapes drastically really quickly, and just experiment and mess around. So now I'm just going to re-add that section in there. So the beauty of this as well is, it's all going to be getting resculpted, so it doesn't really matter hugely. It doesn't have to be that accurate or anything. It's, as I say, as long as you have your primary forms in. All the rest of it can just be fixed with a bit of quick sculpting. So I was having a problem there. There was an extra edge loop that I couldn't see. It was so tight, you can see it there now. So that's why I was having a problem when I was trying to Q mesh. So I just go in, I spot it there, and I just think I removed that. Yeah, see the extra, just remove it there. I was having trouble then with Q mesh because of it. And finally, so that's just taking a quick look around, and grab the snake hook again and just move a few bits around, make it a bit more uneven. A bit more kind of natural looking. Well, even though it's concrete isn't exactly the most natural thing in the world, but yeah, just to rough it all up. Now I'm just putting a couple of levels of sub-div on just to check out smoothing it. Just creasing by polygroup. Just to keep some of those sharp edges. They'll be getting sculpted away, but they're kind of important for what I have in mind for sculpting, to have them in place. Now, I think I start sculpting, but then realise I haven't Dynamesh yet, so I'm still on that ZModeler topology, which isn't exactly sculptable. So I'm just using trim dynamic there just to kill those sharp kind of corners. So it's there's nothing spectacular about this. It's just pretty much just like sketching with a pencil, just scribbling in, and grab the clay build up. So it's, you're just, yeah, as I say, you're just sketching really. Because we extruded out that poly loop, it kind of gives us a start there for that kind of ledge part, and then just clay build up. I must have Dynameshed it. Didn't even realise I had. So yeah, at this stage it's mostly clay build up and trim dynamic. They're the go-to brushes. In fact, they're my go-to brushes for a lot of things. Even I'll even use them rather, even if I'm sculpting them or like a head or something organic. I'll even use them. I tend not to use smooth, only if the topology is kind of a bit messed up, but to even it back out. But I tend to use clay even on C sub mode, you know, to take bits away rather than trying to smooth over things. I'll just dig them back away with clay build up, or I'll use trim dynamic instead of smooth, or I'll use polish as well, hard polish as well sometimes, but I try to keep smoothing to a minimum when I'm sculpting, because I don't like to I don't really like the results that it leaves on the mesh. Obviously it depends what you're doing, but when you're trying to make something look sort of roughed up, weathered, or natural or whatever, you know, unless it's a perfectly smooth, which nothing is, you know, chrome surface or whatever, but yeah, so I tend to stay away from smooth a lot. So yeah, just going around with the clay build up again there, and just digging, and a bit more snake hook, moving them around, and I obviously have the paving slabs visible now, so I can just get an idea of where I want to bring that ledge to, so that couple of the paving slabs are kind of hanging off a little bit. And then we can sort out the paving slabs later on and move them around individually based on where the landscape below them is. So that's about it. So I dynamished the base and just kept on sculpting, just using the same couple of brushes, damn standard in add mode, just to cut a lip around here, and then clay build up all over the place and take some of that back. Cut out the hole here for the pipe, so, and then use that concrete brush that we created just all over the place, and basically just adding in, you know, starting from your large kind of forms and working down to the smaller details. So this is, you know, there's still a long way to go on this, but it's, you know, the kind of the basic sort of forms are in there, the shape that I want it to be, and a few of the details are etched in, and you know the kind of direction that it's heading in. So at this point then you can see this is the dynamished topology. So I duplicated that and Z remeshed it, and then before I did anything with this, the lowest level of the Z remesh, I just duplicated that and shift clicked here to shoot it down to the bottom of the list, and I'll use that later on, some of the faces off the top here, as a surface for nano mesh to add some more pebbles and stuff like that. So yeah, just bang that to the bottom of the list and leave it there for later, so we have a copy of it that we can utilize, or I can utilize even. So with the two of these visible and everything else hidden, we're going to project. I'm going to project the onto the new ZRemesh, but just a few notes on ZRemesh. See here, it's fairly, most of the polygon faces are fairly square, so that's what you're aiming for. You know, if you have elongated quads here, kind of long rectangular type quads, as you divide up, doesn't matter how many times you divide, you're not going to get that detail on them when you start adding smaller and smaller detail, more refined detail. So generally what I'll do is, if I take this ZRemesh mesh and divide it up, you can see there I'm up to 11 million, and I've also deleted all this geometry off the bottom that's unneeded. So how I did that was I just used ZModeler and just alt tagged. See, I didn't get a continuous loop around here. It's broken here by a pole. If I had a continuous loop, I could have just poly group, poly loop, selected the entire loop in one click, and then just delete. Created a polygroup from that loop, and then just delete polygroup island and deleted that, and then auto groups, and then deleted this one that was isolated in the middle. So instead I just alt click tagged all these faces, did the same thing, polygroup, polyloop, or sorry, polygroup, create a polygroup island, click on one of them, single poly, because they're all tagged, and it'll treat all of them as the same target. And then just did the same thing, deleted the polygroup island, and then auto groups, and deleted this in the middle, just so that we're not wasting any resolution on the underside here where it's never going to be seen. So once that's done, I get my force Z remesh. You want to kind of calculate it here, so I'm up to 11, sorry, it's 11 million when it's at the highest level. So once I got the first one, I deleted those polygons underneath, and then I Z remeshed again. I had originally set the target count to 10 million. If you multiply your target count by 4, then multiply that result by 4, and the same again by 4 before, you can calculate what your finished resolution is going to be, and then you can work it out from there what you'll need to kind of optimize it. So what I did, once I had the first Z remesh, I deleted those faces, up the target polygon count to 12, and then just Z remeshed again, and with adaptiveness 0. So the adaptiveness, playing with this, you can read about it here, just hover over it, hold control. What it's going to do is on or off, it'll try to maintain, depending on whether it's on or off, it's going to try to maintain the shape as best it can, and it'll sacrifice uniform quads or not, depending on the slider. So that's what adaptiveness does, so that's quite important. I just played around with that and kept Z remeshing from the base Z remesh to a new Z remesh, which only takes a couple of seconds, until I got something I was happy with, divided up to that highest level, and then just grab any alpha and go in kind of close and sculpt on it and see what sort of detail you're getting. So once you have that in place and you're happy with your Z remesh base mesh, just have the original Dynamesh and the new Z remesh, both of them visible, everything else invisible, and then you can just leave this. You can solo, it'll respect solo mode, so you can still have it in solo mode while you're projecting. So then we just come down to the lowest level, and with those two visible, you can just project all, and then step up a level, project all again, and just keep doing that up through the levels to project that detail from the Dynamesh onto the Z remesh. And I'll keep going up and doing that. It'll take longer and longer, obviously, the higher the poly count, so I'll just do that and not waste your time. So we'll just put a cylinder in place, and where I wanted it, and then just inset and Q-meshed in, and added in a couple of edge loops with slice curve, and now I'm just tagging faces and Q-meshing them in, just to simulate kind of the damage, like you might get a cast iron or clay pipe where bits are broken off, and they might be kind of broken off kind of in chunks, squarish kind of chunks. So that's all I'm doing here. This, there's not much of it even shown in the final asset, so I'm not really going too crazy. Basically just get the base shape into primary forms using ZModeler, and then the usual, just come in after and sculpt, trim dynamic. So I was just having trouble there with the back edge, and that wasn't lining up with the front and was Q-meshing, so I just grabbed those couple of inverts, transpose masked, inverted, and moved them back, and just continue around and just Q-mesh more bits out and break them off, Let's get rid of that weird bit. So yeah, this is all this is kind of same again, same as the last piece. You know, could be created anyway, but it's good. I'm finding it good to just get your base mesh built real quick in ZModeler. So I just divided it a couple of times when I was happy, to smooth away the facets, and Dynameshed it. But I undid then and realised that I forgot to crease it, so I just crease it and then divide it a couple of times and then Dynamesh it. Once it's Dynamesh, then just grab the usual brushes, Trim Dynamic, clay tubes, move, and just start wrecking it. Mess it up a bit. I don't even think I spent that long on this bit. It'll hardly even be seen in the final, but just go around, you know, touch it with the Trim Dynamic, and this Trim Dynamic is probably easily my top 3 favourite brushes in ZBrush. I use it in nearly everything that I ever sculpt. I always use it no matter what. It's great for so many things, particularly this sort of just damaging edges. It's fantastic. So that's pretty much it there for the pipe. I just thought I'd show a bit and just rounding those kind of square bits off the clay build-up, and continue going around and mess it up and make it look kind of broken and battered, and that's all there is to it really. It is just a shite pipe after all. So here's the model now after just a little bit more sculpting, and just added a couple of skulls in here, here and there, kind of embedded in the concrete. And I'm just going to show how to add a layer of stones here with Nanomesh, like I explained earlier on. We have a duplicate, down the bottom here, so I'll just solo that out. You see, just with the mask pen, I've just the duplicate's just the first level of this, with all the higher levels deleted, and then what we do is just paint the mask around the areas where we want to put the stones or whatever, gravel, whatever we want to put, and Control W, and that'll create a polygroup. Then just Control Shift click, isolate the polygroup, delete hidden, and then the ZModeler brush that we had earlier on with the gravel pieces. All that is when you have your insert multi-mesh brush selected, you just go to brush, create Nanomesh brush, and now this will be this will replace the default cube in the Nanomesh when you're using ZModeler. You can also save these brushes out as well. So we'll just go to insert Nanomesh, polygroup all, and just make sure first we have the stone that we want selected. So I might just maybe select this one and just start to drag out. You can just drag them anyway out here, it doesn't matter, because we're going to adjust that stuff now in Nanomesh. So we'll just turn off show placement and one solo, just so we can see how it looks. Just change that material, and now I'm going to change the random distribution. Just jack that up, pump that up, crank that up, and I'll change the width variation a tiny bit, and the length, and the height, just to give that extra bit of variation. And another one now I'm going to change is the Z offset. At the moment they're just sticking off the surface, so you can lower that Z offset and just bring them back down so it looks like they're actually embedded in to the concrete. So let me see. yeah, so that's basically all. And once you have that done, you can also just change this again. If you're not happy with that one, and just go down here to inventory, replace mesh, nano mesh from brush. You can change it, and then once you're happy with everything, just go one to mesh and create a mesh, and then just Control Shift click, and again, and delete hidden. That was just a placement mesh, and now you know it's its own mesh. So I solo it out. You still have you know, options here, so we could just go auto groups, and now we could just you know, delete individual ones that we weren't happy with, or do whatever. Use your sculpting brush to subdivide it, whatever you want to do. It's just a normal subtool now, a normal mesh. So let me see, I had these other ones here as well that I placed around. You can also do this in layers within nano mesh, so you can have multiple ones built up on top of each other, but it doesn't really matter here for this. I'm just going to create them as, turn them into meshes anyway, and then just I can merge them into one layer so you don't have too many of them. So solo that, and then that's pretty much it, like just for adding in those extra details. And I think that is hidden at the moment. Yep. Yeah, so you can see they kind of, some of these, as I say, you can get rid of them, but they're all going to blend in. And this is all textured and rendered out and everything, and it'll all look like it's just, you know, it'll be better integrated. So that is, I think that's pretty much it for the sculpt of this. So there's a few more bits. I'm going to just, using the same methods, I'm just going to create insert mesh brushes from some of those Aaron Dablo debris maker tools I showed earlier on. Just put a couple of bits of debris and shrapnel lying about the place, and then I'll just create the base of this. It's just like a box, and it's just a couple of cylindrical pillars, so I'm not going to, they're just simple box modeling stuff, and I might do a tiny bit of sculpting on them, or I might just leave it for the texture, because you won't really see them that much in the final render. But so I'll do them off camera, and I'll have them done when I come back, and we'll be ready to move on to this this piece at the back. This should be a nice kind of piece to sculpt. You can build it out with ZModeler base mesh, and then just Dynamesh it and sculpt it out. So I'll do that in the next part, and I think, yeah, I think this will be the end of this part. So that's more or less our finished result for this part. Alright then, cheers, thanks Skillet.